This video is about the book of 1 Samuel. This is one of my brief Bible overview videos. You'll notice a countdown in the top as well as notes scrolling along the side so you can follow along and pause to study more in depth as you desire to do so. So what is the book of 1 Samuel all about? First, its location in the scriptures. 1 Samuel is the 9th book in the Old Testament and the 4th book in the historical book section of our English Old Testament. Samuel, 1st and 2nd together as one book, is the 8th book in the prophets Nevi'im section of the Hebrew Bible, 3rd in the former prophets subsection. 1 Samuel has 31 chapters. Its title in Hebrew and English is Samuel, which comes from Samuel, the prophet and final judge, who is one of the three main characters in the book, those three being Samuel, Saul, and David. Our English division of Samuel into two books, so 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, some call it 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel, follows how the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Septuagint, divided the books and how the Latin Vulgate divided it as well. Author and audience. The human author is really unknown and left up to speculation. I'll talk about that in a second. And the people, or the audience, is obviously the people of Israel in the period of the monarchy. So on that authorship note, some scholars believe Samuel was largely responsible for the material up to 1 Samuel chapter 25, because that is when Samuel's death occurs in the book. Then Nathan the prophet, Gad the prophet / David seer, or even Abiathar the priest or someone similar wrote 1 Samuel 25 through 31 and did the final writing and compilation work based on what we see in 1 Chronicles 29:29. But that proposal really needs to stay speculative because neither book, 1 or 2 Samuel, name a human author directly. Also, the reference to kings of Judah in 1 Samuel 27:6 is believed to place the final formation of 1 Samuel well after the kingdom was divided. So what are the major summary themes of 1 Samuel? You have looking for a leader, the God who protects, blesses, and assesses. Samuel, as one cohesive book, outlines the rise of kingship, stresses the Davidic kingdom hope, and it clarifies honoring the Lord above all else. You also have kingship as a messianic institution, rise of the lowly, fall of the mighty for the book of Samuel as a whole in regard to Samuel, Saul, and David, each one of those and their stories. And you also have God's exercising of his cosmic kingship by inaugurating a Davidic dynasty, so house in Israel. A key verse that summarizes the book and theme of 1 Samuel would be 1 Samuel 8:7. And the Lord said to Samuel, "Obey the voice of the people in all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me from being king over them." Another good candidate would be 1 Samuel 16:7. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." So what's the structure of 1 Samuel? So just a note, early tradition suggests Samuel was originally one book, so 1 and 2 Samuel together. So here's a suggested kind of broad division of the whole, so Samuel as one cohesive whole, and then also one for 1 Samuel by itself. So here's a broad section, 4-section overview of 1 and 2 Samuel together as Samuel. So you see Samuel's growth and the hope for a king priest, Saul's failure and rejection and the hope for a king priest, then David's rise and fall and the hope for a king priest, and then David's life and hope point to the coming messianic king priest. And here's the 4 broad section divisions of just 1 Samuel by itself. We have the story of Samuel, transition to monarchy, the story of Saul, and the story of Saul and David. Just a poem note right here. It is worth pointing out that Samuel is primarily Old Testament narrative. That's its literary genre as a whole for the book entirely. But it is bound together by 3 poems. One at the beginning, one in the middle, and one at the end. Reversal is the rhyme and rhythm of these poems. The mighty, handsome, seemingly impressive people of the world, such as Peniah, Saul, Goliath, and Absalom, are exposed as bankrupt, while the small, weak, infertile, and unimpressive, such as Hannah, Samuel, Jonathan, and David, are exalted. And there's an example text that shows those themes. Here's a major themes, characters, and content. So major themes of 1 Samuel: God's kingship, God's providential guidance, God's sovereign will and power. Major characters and contents of 1 Samuel: you have Samuel, Saul, and David as main characters, and then you see in its contents the birth and dedication of Samuel by Hannah, Hannah's song, Eli the priest and his two worthless sons, the call of Samuel as a prophet. Then you have the story of the Ark of God, so its capture, time in the Philistia or with the Philistines, and then its return. Then you have the judgeship of Samuel. Then you have the chapter where Israel demands a king and Samuel's warnings in 1 Samuel chapter 8. So they were told in Deuteronomy 17 God's stipulations and provisions for a king when they wanted one, but they wanted a king like all the nations. Then you see Saul is chosen and made king, the reign of Saul, and post-rejection by God. So Saul's first rejection there, and then his second rejection there in that passage. The introduction of David and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17, Saul, Jonathan, and David. Saul becomes David's enemy, David on the run, David in Philistia, and then the deaths of Saul and Jonathan end out the book. How does 1 Samuel point to Jesus? Jesus is the superior to Samuel as the great messianic priest. Jesus is also the promised son of David, whose kingdom will last forever. I want to encourage you to pick up and read this book of the Bible on your own. 1 Samuel is really thrilling to read. I would encourage you to read as much of it in one sitting as possible. It's really great to read the Bible in that way, especially historic narrative, and then to break it up into smaller sections and read some of those on your own at a different pace as well. So some stories are longer in 1 Samuel and some are shorter, and it can be easy to miss details because we think we know these stories already. But as a whole, this book of the Bible is an exciting and thrilling read and holds some of the most memorable and retold stories from the Old Testament. How does 1 Samuel apply to us? 4 lives dominate the 2-volume narrative of 1 and 2 Samuel: Hannah, Samuel, Saul, and David. These are large lives, large because they live in the largest of God. These 4 lives do not show us how we should live, but how in fact we do live, sometimes for good and sometimes for evil, and always interacting with God, as God uses us to work out his purpose of salvation in us and in the world. Ultimately, we should resist being led to see God in our stories, but God in the larger context and plot in which our stories find themselves. There are some trusted resources, some I used to make this video, and I would encourage you to check out on your own, and that, in a few brief minutes, is what the book of 1 Samuel is all about. Hey guys, Joe here, back to the Word. You just finished one of my brief Bible overview videos. I hope you found it encouraging and helpful. Obviously, with this sort of video, I cannot be exhaustive, so I want to encourage you to keep going, to study the book of the Bible you just heard about deeper and personally on your own, to read it, and then pick up a trusted resource, maybe one of the ones I mentioned or one of the ones you already have, to help you read and understand this book of the Bible better. If you like this video personally and found it helpful, please consider sharing it with others or even subscribing to the channel. I also have put a playlist link to all of the videos on my channel that I've done like this one in the video description if you want to check that out. And I've also put a blog link to resource lists for those who want to study different books of the Bible and see all my recommended resources in one place on that blog post. Lastly, if you have a favorite verse, story, or even insight I didn't cover in my overview video for this book of the Bible, I would love to hear about it in the comments, to learn with you guys and to celebrate God's Word together. So with that, until next time, continue to read, treasure, follow the Word. God bless, and I'll see you guys soon.